Hey everyone, just gonna let some people chime in here. Going live today with a gentleman named Joe Kennedy. He is running for City Council in Surrey. Looking forward to talking to him. He, in our few emails we exchanged and how he reached out to me, seems very motivated, so this will be exciting. And just gonna take a moment here to queue it up on my other device, on my laptop. Gonna make a few announcements right away, and then we'll get started with Joe. So great, here, this is working out. Oh damn. So hi everyone. Gonna let a few people chime in here. And, hi everyone. And but in the meantime, while you're chiming in, I just want to let you know this conversation will live on the group when we're all done here. It'll just live on the Facebook group. I will give it a blurb, tell everyone what it is. If you know anyone in Surrey who would appreciate learning about Joe Kennedy, please just tag them in the comments. I will tag Joe as well in the blurb, so Joe can then answer any questions if he's not too busy. And just know that, yeah. So please help spread the word about Joe's message. Best way to do that is tag someone you know in Surrey in the comments. So before we get started too, guys, there's lots of posts about traveling, specifically across the border. And I know that's an important topic to the group, and so I'm honoring that. I'm approving posts, but there's just too many. So please just do a keyword search before you ask a question that I have to then go through 10 of the same questions and decide if I should approve them or decline them. I don't take pride, and I don't enjoy declining posts. But when I have so many of the same question, worded differently, just please, it saves me time. Just go ahead and do a keyword search. I can't post them all. There's just too many, because there'll be no room for anything else. So all of you would just end up seeing a feed full of the same question. I can't do that. Like, it's just too redundant. So please just do a keyword search. And largely, that's all I had to announce today. Joe, I think, is ready to go here. So why don't we just hop right to it? Let's see how this works, Joe. I should now saying adding. I hope it turns into. Oh. Hey.
Hey, George, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. So here we are. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Sounds like this is now, instead of going through here, it's going through my cell phone, so I apologize if it sounds a little bit finicky here.
There is a little slight echo, but you're not like distorted or anything.
No? Okay. If you're fine with it, I'm fine with it. So
it is a little funny. Count to 3, count to 5 or something. Like tell me your. Well, how about just tell me your name?
3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
If you do 2 seconds here, let me see if I can reconnect this. This is my first time with Facebook Live, so I know that sometimes it's a little finicky with some of these. So this is, I guess, what it'll be. That's okay.
You're clear. It just sounds like.
Oh, we're back.
Is it working?
Try that again. Yeah.
Yeah. You sound clear. It just it was sounding like you were in a tin can a little bit. That's all.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm just in a room. It's well decorated and all the rest, but it's literally 4 walls and echoes everywhere. So, but this is the best I can do. I got kids next door.
Yeah, it's all good. The sound is really clear, so your voice is coming through clear, and
okay.
It's not like tough to hear or anything. It's good. It's perfect. So
excellent, tolerable. I like it. We'll go with it.
Yeah, I hope you're having a good week.
Oh,
you're running for councillor of Surrey. How does that feel?
It feels great, to be completely honest. It is just the next step in a progression of trying to fight back. I ended up getting into politics back in 2021 when I ran with the People's Party of Canada.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. I was looking around for courageous leadership during COVID with the federal election that was coming up. And unfortunately, there was nobody filling the spot within the PPC, and we all know that all the other parties were just, interchangeable for what they stood for.
Yeah.
So I figured if not me, then who? And I've always been politically minded. I just never thought that I would actually have to run for politics to be able to get something changed. But here we are. So
in 2021, what riding were you representing? What riding were you running for?
Yeah, I was the North Surrey. It's called Surrey Centre. So
okay.
The very top of Surrey.
Yeah. I recognize Surrey Centre from a SkyTrain stop. Is that right where it is? Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's Gateway, King George, Scott Road. That's all. Yeah, that was all my area.
Okay, cool. Yeah. How did you like that experience?
We got thrown into the fire pretty quickly. I mean, with the snap election, we all kind of knew that there was going to be an election coming up, and then Trudeau called the snap election, hoping that he could get a majority, and he didn't, thank goodness. But we literally had 30 days to figure out how to run, what to run, and the PPC was pretty good about giving us policy, but I was already in line with the policy of PPC anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, get out there and do your best was kind of how it went. And they did offer some behind the scenes stuff on coaching, but I mean, you're just so busy that it was impossible. And I've got, like I said, 2 little ones who are 3 and 5 now. And I was the sole care provider at that time, their dad. And it was just difficult. It was really difficult. Plus on top of that with COVID and everything else like that, but we made it through and here we are. So yeah.
So do you find a federal election as a candidate is far different than being a municipal councillor, in a municipal election as a councillor rather than in a federal MP?
I guess so. I mean, in the sense that I'm running with Amrit Baring and as the mayoral candidate, plus another 4 councillors. So we're a party of 6. It's kind of nice, I suppose, because Amrit really does take the brunt of all the interviews and that sort of thing. He is the figurehead of the party, and so he's the one that gets invited to all candidates' mayoral forums, and we just kind of sit back and try and support him as best as possible. So it's a little bit different that way. It's still a lot of work. It's still a lot of going door to door, getting back to emails, talking to groups that reach out to you and that sort of thing as well, that groups that I've never heard of at times. And I love to read and I love to try to stay current with what's going on. So I try to understand where everyone's coming from at the same time as well. So yeah, it's a lot of background work.
I can assume you live in Surrey then.
Yes, yeah, I do. I live up in Whalley. It's a little area of Surrey. It's basically considered the downtown core of Surrey now. They've been rezoning and redeveloping. So where I'm at, I'm about 4 blocks away from downtown Surrey, which is where all the skyscrapers are going up.
Wow. Is it loud?
No, not really. I mean, you can hear the SkyTrain when you're outside. Great neighbors, great neighborhood. But I wouldn't say it's overly loud. So
with all the construction or anything, no?
No, luckily enough, it hasn't started right beside us yet. I'm still a couple of blocks away from it, but yeah.
Yeah,
it's cool. Just, what, I've lived in the Lower Mainland since 2003. So I was amazed coming from Ontario, just how much construction there was going on.
Yeah,
I kept telling all my friends I was telling all my friends like, hey, if you're looking for work, you got to come out here because you're in construction and you're always complaining. So get out here. There's tons of jobs. But
that's what brought me out here.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I came out here in 2019 for a construction job. I was part of a drilling team.
Okay.
The drilling crew. Yeah. Then I got injured. And then, just the way things all went. And it was funny. I moved here fall of 2019. And I just worked all winter long. And then that famous incident happened around the world in mid-March of 2020.
Yeah.
COVID hit, and then I didn't really get a summer in Vancouver. What ended up happening that summer is we everyone's shift got shortened, or hours got shortened.
Yeah.
So I was working a little less, and then end of June of 2020, I took a pretty bad leg injury, and so it took me a couple summers to really see Vancouver. It wasn't until April 2021 when I went to my first rally that cool, this is Vancouver. This is some Vancouver people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was laid out for most of 2020. At least the whole summer I was. Yeah, it was pretty brutal.
Are you much of a gamer? Like, were you at least able to enjoy it and be like, oh, now I can play a lot of video games or something like that? Or do you play music? Are you a musician?
No, I wrote.
Or did you just sit there and just seethe and be upset?
I wrote a novella, about 15,000 words.
Okay.
So I got to the third draft.
Wow. Well,
yeah, but halfway
sounds like a lot more.
draft.
Well done, man. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's still.
Kudos to you.
I think it needs a few more rewrites. So I put that one on the shelf for later in life, I think.
Well, can I tell you how many novels I've written? So, that's amazing that you've done that. Now, I've never heard the term novella before. Is it?
Yeah, it's just a shorter novel. It's a little longer than a short story, and it's not quite a novel, right? So
okay, cool.
Yeah, I think a novella class is somewhere between I can't remember. It's between 10 and 25,000 words.
Okay.
Like The Old Man and the Sea by Hemingway. That's a novella, right? Like there's some famous stories you've heard about that are novellas, not quite novels. So.
Okay.
Sort of thing.
Well, I'll go out on a limb and say I haven't written any of those either. So. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I got into a good rhythm. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd just sit at my desk. I do my stretches for my leg, and then I'd write. I'd spend about 3 hours writing. I did it all by hand, and then I would get up and I would get myself ready, and by 1 or 2, I'd have to be at my physiotherapist, and that was pretty much my day routine for about 3.5, 4 months.
Are you back up and back to normal now, or as you can?
Yeah. Me and Melissa here, we're running every morning and stuff. And
excellent.
Yeah, I'm in good shape now. The leg still bothers me a little bit, but I got really lucky, so we're good to go.
Good.
Enough about me, though. Let's learn about you.
Well,
but you're running with People's Council.
That's right.
Do you all share the same goals? Like when you're city councillor, what is going to happen? What are you going to do, and what are you going to change?
Yeah, absolutely. So first question of, do we all have the same goals? We're all aligned. The People's Council of Surrey was basically formed for this reason, to run for this election. And we came in with 3 pillars to basically decide on how we were going to lay out our policy. And those 3 pillars were honesty, transparency, and freedom being first and foremost. And then, we built out 11 points of policy that are basically surrounding family and faith and freedom. Of course, freedom being the most important. So what are we going to change about being a councillor? Well, that's a great question, and there's a lot of things that we can do, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that we will find out are a little bit beyond our purview of what we can actually, change directly. But when you have a mayoral council and council in alignment that is willing to stand up for the actual citizens of Surrey, every citizen of Surrey, and combine that, it carries a lot more weight. People right now in this current election, they're talking about housing issues, they're talking about transportation, they're talking about affordability and that sort of thing. And yet they're leaving the fact that a lot of Canadians are still tyrannized by their own government. And we haven't had a single elected leader yet speak out on behalf of those people and say, wait a second, this is BS. And so when it comes to council, the nice thing is you deal with zoning, you deal with budgeting as well. But there's a bit of a culture war going on, as I'm sure you're pretty much aware of. And so what you have is you have governments, local, you have federal, and you have provincial governments all spending your tax money on groups that hate us, that hate you and hate the freedom that you have. And so, it'll be interesting to see when those budgets come through, how we can affect those types of groups that are happy to tyrannize people, happy to push critical race theory, diversity, inclusion, and equity, hurt businesses, make them less efficient, charge them more taxes, and not really be accountable financially to the people that they're supposed to be representing. So it'll be nice to kind of turn off the taps a little bit for those types of groups, and then we might actually be able to hear both sides of the story and actually have an honest dialogue of what's going on in Canada, what's important to Canadians, instead of just being this nonstop barrage of money and agendas and ideologies coming at us from these not-for-profits and think tanks and those sorts of things. So, but with every job, we're going to start off, and I've never been a councillor before. Aside from running in politics, I've never been a politician. So it'll be like starting a first job anywhere. It's going to be a lot of learning, and of course, there's a lot of staff that work within City Hall and work within the city. So you have to work with them, and you have to play nice and try to work with those experts, and try to manage it at the same time that you're still upholding the actual values that you stand for, and look out for the freedom and the business population to get out of business's way so that they can actually do what they do best.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to know what's going on in my immediate circle of friends' life, with the amount of complexity that everyone's life has.
Yeah.
And so to think that I'm going to go into council and understand exactly what kind of challenges affect a construction worker, or affect a dog groomer, or affect a restaurateur, or all these things, you really have to take a step back and trust that they can live their own lives, and give them reestablish the fact that they have the freedom to choose however they want and what they want to pursue, and let them pursue what they find meaningful, be experts in their field, offer great products, offer it hopefully to the citizens of Surrey, have competitive, competitive marketplaces, so that way government's not picking winners and then just wasting all our frickin' money on them, chasing ESG scores and stuff like that. It's just, yeah. So anyways, that's the short answer, but whatever. So anyways, I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, you did. Like, you brushed up on something really important there, though, is like, it's hard to tell what it's like there until you're there. But you know who you are and what you stand for. How are you presenting yourself to the voters with who you are and what you stand for? Like, how that's where you can control now, is how you present yourself. So how has that been going, and how have you been doing it?
Well, looking back on videos, I realized that I probably stumble over my words too often, and I say a lot of ums and ahs and that sort of thing.
So bad for
that. and we're always our own worst critics, right? We look at ourselves in the mirror and we see all the flaws and stuff. But how am I presenting? As best as I can, and as honestly as I can. This isn't a show. It's just who I am. So I don't know. This is me. And the other councillors and the other mayoral candidates that aren't Amrit Baring and the independents, they've had a lot of time in politics. Some of them are five-term MPs within the Liberal government, for instance, is one of the guys. And they talk that they're all for unity, they're all for bringing people together, and yet he's silent when it comes to Justin Trudeau speaking out about the trucker convoy, calling them often racist and misogynistic and not science listening, basically calling them ignorant, and then that MP who's now running for mayor is completely silent. So what kind of unity are you actually bringing to the table when this is happening in our day and age, and he's just staying silent about it? So I don't know how it's presenting. We'll see. This is kind of a long I don't want to call it a game, but we have to plant the seeds, and we have to hopefully inspire other people to be able to stand up and speak out for themselves, for their own future.
Yeah.
Politics aside, like I don't know how you guys feel, but I freaking hated that we were told from the top down that we couldn't see our best friends and our family, and I had some family, immediate family, pass away during COVID, which is, I'm not looking for sympathy or anything like that, but the stipulations on being able to go see them and being by their bedside it was fucking atrocious. And the lack of humanity, it was just stunning. Plus going through, plus going through what everyone goes through on a daily basis and their ups and downs and stuff, not being able to rely on their community, their friends, their places of faith, if you happen to be religious. It's really, really important. And to just be told that, no, you can't, because you're going to be deemed to be a grandma killer, it was like, you have no idea what we're all going through at this point. And to think that we'd be so callous so just to be told that you're non-essential, that your future doesn't matter, that your kids' future doesn't matter, that they're willing to sacrifice you at the altar of virtue signaling. But that was just too much for me to take in that sense. So yeah, anyways, so it's a long game in that sense, where hopefully we'll have other people stand up and just go, yeah, you know what, that was kind of BS. And this won't be the only crisis that we deal with in Canada. Justin Trudeau's already said that he's expecting the winter is going to be, he wants 85, or what is it? How did he say? He said 80, and then he says 85, and then he says 90% booster uptake, otherwise to avoid, future mandates or lockdowns like last year. And you go, what did you just say? And it's time that we start taking these leaders at their word, because they're telling us what they're going to do, and yet we go, oh, okay, we're not going to vote. There's only 30% of Surrey that actually ends up voting in municipal elections, and
I've been hearing that
federal election, it was, yeah.
Hear that all around. It's like, seems to be the average. Only 30% of the voters vote in municipal elections. That's just absurd. Yeah, everyone's just so apathetic, and there's like this belief, well, my vote won't do anything, right? But your vote still gets counted. Like if by chance Amrit doesn't win, but a lot of people came out and voted for him anyway, then the other candidates that run against him will know how many people voted for him. That votes gets counted, and that tends to shift, and that represents the wants and the needs of the community, of the city, so people got to remember that even if the person you vote for didn't win, your vote still gets counted, and it gets burned in the mind of someone. You know, you got to vote. It's really important to.
I have to wonder if Pierre Poilievre didn't win, if Justin Trudeau would have relaxed the mandates for travel. That was a big shot across the bow for them to go, oh, okay, well, maybe we should pull back these mandates for a little bit.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. There's always some sort of event lately that pulls the mandates away. They stop the mandates because there's an event to correlate, maybe, and it's slightly arguable. But when all the mandates lifted during and immediately after the convoy, that was very that was a suspicious one.
Yeah.
You're talking about some of the stuff you went through during the lockdowns and mandates and stuff. I was really worried about kids. I don't have any kids of my own, but like the socializing side of it, and not going to school, getting stuck inside all the time. Wow, I just was worried about kids so much. And I was also worried about like business, and I was just alone, right? I like I was saying, I'd gotten injured. So summer 2020, I didn't get out. And then the fall and winter came, and spring of 2021 was the first time I really started to get to know Vancouverites. And it was at a Save Small Business rally, and And it was also business that I was worried about, like knowing that there was so much
Oh yeah.
small business in Canada that was being affected by these mandates. It could
Yep.
ruin the future of our country. Um,
Yep.
so it was like two topics. It was like small business and kids. Those are still like, how are those two demographics or those two categories, if you will, are going to pull through all this in the future? How much permanent damage might have happened to either of those two subjects?
Yep. Yep.
And it's a real concern for me. So I'm really pleased to hear about People's Council and school trustees that are for freedom and in support of kids, people running as school trustees and stuff. So
Yep.
it's really it's motivating. And when I started Jobless Jobs, a lot of people came my way, especially in September of October of 2021.
Yep.
They were just saying all this stuff about how they felt like they were alone until they saw the name of the company. They saw that we formed and saw we were doing something.
Yeah.
They're someone who's just alone in medicine hat. It was
Yeah.
like sending me an email telling me that I'm a ray of sunshine. Of like, whoa, wow.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder. Like the effects of it were immeasurable. So to
Yep.
see candidates like yourself running and still speaking up, and I think what we're starting to see here is the one of the permanent changes that came from COVID is freedom-loving Canadians getting into politics, and it's going to change the political theater for the rest of our lives. And it's looking like, and it could very well do that. And you mentioned about playing the long game and stuff. So here we are. We're at 5 minutes in to the new
Yeah.
political theater. There's going
Yep.
to be more elections in the future and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to what happens in the next federal election, the next two federal elections.
Yep.
We're not going to forget, so we're going to keep pushing
Yeah.
and seeing candidates like you. People are going to realize, oh, they're getting into politics now. Maybe it's time I do start talking about that feeling I have that I never told anyone, that I didn't like it.
Yep.
That's the
Well,
point, is like to really just keep it present, keep it alive, the fact that we don't want that, and we're
yep.
not going to do that.
Yep. Well, the machine, or whatever you want to call it, it's doing its best to keep us down. That's for sure. There's websites out there already that are calling us, I think it's called anti-hate, where hate has no room on council, and we're being spread all over to say that we are, hate groups, basically, which is just nothing further from the truth. It's an easy way for them to just discard us without actually having to take any of our questions seriously.
Yeah.
So, and we've seen it all before. It's the cancel culture. They're really trying to make it seem that we are something that we're not. And unfortunately, people are busy, and they're looking at reading the news for 5 minutes or whatever it may be, and they don't have time to dig into stories to find out what is actually going on. And so that's why we need to counter this with shows like yours and BC Business Against Health Pass and all those groups to just share out the information. And we've seen it happen to so many people before. Jordan Peterson's one of the people that I've seen get pilloried within the news quite a lot, and he's been nothing but good for me. He really helped change my life around. So
yeah. So like you're talking about this smear campaigns, like people only really have, most people nowadays, I hope I'm wrong, but it appears as though like people just only really, their research is reading a headline and then another headline and then whatever they're scrolling past.
Well, that's the problem with the funding, right? So who's funding these small groups originally, but they end up being cited as being experts later on, or that one story will get repeated by other news organizations and so on and so forth. And so it's a pile of lies, I'll use rather than the S word, but it's a pile of lies that's piled onto another pile of lies. It's piled onto another pile of lies, and then it's taken as canon later on, where suddenly you have all these news organizations that are saying that bad things about us, which are based on this one story that some no-name person posted, and it's getting spread all over because it sells and they like it, and it it goes along with the agenda and the ideology that they want to push. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that largely the pushback you've gotten? Was just slander campaigns?
Yeah, absolutely.
Media?
I mean, yeah, slander campaigns. You'll have some small little Twitter wars or whatever you want to call it. They're pretty fun and entertaining to watch, to be completely honest, and sometimes participate in. You got to have a little fun. Yeah, right. But I mean, I think most people are so afraid of cancel culture that they won't come up to us and talk to us in person. They might agree with what we say, but they know that cancel culture is real, and maybe they got a small business and they don't want to get targeted by the mob. And so, let me take the arrows. I got a small business, and that's fine. But I would rather stand up and actually try and do something about it now while we still can, before our speech gets censored to the point where you can't even voice an honest opinion in your mind. And so let me take the arrows. I'll happily be that shield, and people can vote in the ballot boxes, and hopefully we will come out as being the silent majority of sanity in politics. And, and we can.
If you take arrows, wouldn't that not be cultural appropriation?
Well, yeah.
You can't get away with anything now. I'm just,
I know.
I'm half joking.
Well, I know you are, but somebody's going to get it and be like, yeah, that's how we can get him. He said he's going to take arrows for that, and they're going to run.
Yeah.
Old pictures of me will show up with me with a mohawk, and then they'll be like, "Oh, he's culturally appropriating."
Yeah, that's really wearing a feather. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, but it's just so bizarre nowadays.
And like the news has changed too, right? Like they're not running like they used to. They don't got people going out and talking to you. Like there's those people writing stories about people's counsel, those journalists, if you can call them that. They're not coming and hanging with you and writing a piece about immersing themselves within the party, and
Right.
like those stories just don't happen anymore. Especially at the municipal level. What's going on is like newspapers and other news companies. I don't like calling them organizations. It gives them a little too much credit, being organized, and also we got to call them what they are. They're a company. They are for profit. Many of them have shareholders. Many of them are part of like larger conglomerates of companies that are owned by that you trade for. You can buy shares in them, so they got to have quarterly profits, right? And what they're doing is they're not staffing their newsrooms like the traditional old days. What they will do is they will take interns from create communications programs, and they will staff them there. They will hang out for the summer. They'll work for next to nothing or for free, and then when they've graduated from their communications program, they'll bring them in to work for a year or two on contract for pennies, for nothing. And then that new graduate, usually it's some kid, it gets to tell family at Thanksgiving dinner, "Oh, I'm working for this newspaper, or I'm working for this news organization, and I'm a journalist now." And it looks really good. It looks really awesome. But the work that they're doing, they're just hearing from press releases from local police. That's where they're getting their statements from. They're getting press releases from big companies that they're connected with. And then so what we call in the news is just on the wire. So they're just taking stuff off the wire and maybe making a phone call to get a statement from someone to round it off at the end. They're not working. They're not working.
Did you say that they tried and and then the company or whoever they were trying to interview wasn't available for comment at the time of printing, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We tried.
Wasn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, yeah. And then that's called journalism now. And then those kids,
Yep.
they after a year or two, they go off and they become a PR person for some big event center or something, and work in the PR center for some big, you know, big bank or something, and they're just whatever, marketing and all that sort of thing. So they're not really, they're damaging journalism by taking part in that, but then they're getting that period of clout so they can move up. And it's just, that's the system now. It's like the newspaper needs to save money, the news companies need to save money, spend less, and profit more. So it's hit pieces, clickbait, with people that don't have the experience to be writing these stories. And
print more tweets. That's what we need. We need more Twitterverse on there for.
So we gotta, really, it's nice to see things like the Western Standard. It's nice to see, Rebel News, making some changes and stuff. Like, it's pretty good. Like, True North is one of my favorites, and the Western Standard. I gotta just applaud those two, because they're not just one-sided either. Like, a guy I know for the Western Standard, he was even he did some real investigative journalism, and was turning up some stuff on Action for Canada, which of course none of us wanted to hear, but his story was solid. It was like, so here we go. Like, obviously he's not just one-sided. So,
and I think that's what we all want. I think we want both sides of the story in as much detail as available, and then let us make up our own minds on where we lie in that. We don't want to be told where we. I don't want it to be an editorial piece where they tell me how I'm supposed to think. Give me both sides. Let me, use my intelligence to be able to decipher what is real, what's bullshit, what sits with me, what doesn't, where it aligns with my values, and then let me make up my own mind. And I wish that to be everybody's option. So that's why one of our things is, promote transparent, independent journalism.
Yeah, great.
We all know that during COVID, just before the election, the federal election, the government pumped out $600 million into every top down, right from the biggest journalist institutions all the way down to the small ones. But the thing that people don't often bring up with that is that, if you actually paid attention to any of those outlets, I mean, we are getting bombarded by COVID vaccine, get your COVID vaccine, all the rest, over and over and over again. And you think, well, there's money in that too. So the advertising alone, I'm sure, outweighed the $600 million that they paid these institutions.
Yeah.
So, and with businesses suffering as much as they did over COVID, in the sense that you can't sell a product and you can't serve your customers, how did all these news organizations stay in business? You can talk about much. So they took the ad money and they ran with it, and they made tons of money.
Yeah, JT and COVID was the best thing that happened to news companies in Canada since right before the subprime mortgage, recession in 2008. They all went broke because they were all in bed with these national car ads. And then we know what happened in 2008 to all the car companies out of Detroit. They stopped putting all these ads out in like places like where I was affiliated with from Winnipeg, was the Winnipeg Free Press. They didn't have ads in their paper from Winnipeg companies. Not enough to sustain themselves, because they just got so locked into the national car ads. Like someone should have known to diversify that, because it can't last. And sure enough, there was a recession in 08. By that point, social media was a thing, and all these young people are just like weren't looking to newspapers. They weren't buying a newspaper. Like, what is that? What's that going to do for me? It's just heavy.
And you can only be lied to so often before you're like, you know what, it's just not worth my time. If you got a buddy of yours that tells outlandish stories, and they're all lies, 50 times, let's say 60 times he's telling you these stories, and they're all different and they're all outlandish, and none of them are true. How often are you actually going to entertain those stories until you just go, you know what, buddy, like I just can't hang out with you anymore. You know, so we all have to, discrimination is a horrible name these days, but I mean, in our lives, we have to pick what we want to do for the day, what's important. There's an infinite amount of things that we could do today, but we're choosing to be here, have this conversation right now because we think that it's the most important thing that we can do right now. So I'm discriminating against everything else that I could do at this moment. But when it comes to news and institutions, I mean, there's been such a loss of trust in these institutions. And I think Canada's pretty naive because we've had it pretty good. For the most part, our institutions had been good. Our government had been, you know, fairly well representative. But, you know, it seems like we've been subverted in a way, and it's just we're kind of killing ourselves from the inside out right now.
It can't stay that way. Like, I mean, I was working on a fishing boat, and we were like literally over a year and a half ago. It was commercial fishing, and they have satellite TV on there. I remember sitting around with a couple of the guys watching the TV, and it was the first time I saw like real TV with in a long time, with commercials between there and everything. And we were watching this this news program, and I forget who it was. I don't remember if one of the big three, CBC, CTV, or Global, and then the commercials, like the whole thing was all COVID, and the vaccines are coming and all this sort of thing, and the rollouts for the certain age groups were going on at the time. It was like May, June of 2021, and so all of that was the news. And then as I was watching this, then the commercial started. And during a commercial, it was all about get your vaccine, get your this. And it was all funded by the different special interest groups and stuff. You can see the little logos. I don't remember them all. But then I'm like, you know, the news they're telling us is the same as the commercials, right?
Just reinforcement.
So look at who their advertisement is. Look at who their advertisers is, and that's whose narrative they're speaking on behalf of.
Absolutely.
And that's what's gone too wrong with the news is, you know, when we started making the publisher someone who worked their way up through the advertising department, that was the mistake. What we should have done is kept the publisher having been appointed or you know, earned that role by working their way up through the editorial department. So what we have now is advertising is used to be the vehicle that carried the important news to the public. Now we're in a time where the clickbait carries the advertising to the public. Right? The priorities have shifted. Now it's all about quarterly profits. So it's no longer about our decisions. It's no longer about our informed consent. It's about their quarterly profits, large or small. So we have a big problem with journalism in Canada. It's gone way too far. It's gone way too far, man.
Which is why it's so important to support those smaller news organizations that are independently funded. Rebel News, like you said. What was the other one that you mentioned?
True North and Western Standard.
True North? Western Standard. And then I'm familiar with, I call it the Epic Times, but apparently it's Epoch Times.
Yeah. I don't know that one very well. I don't know that one. I know they did some like I can't speak on it. I don't remember it all. But yeah.
I was a subscriber for them for quite some time, and really enjoyed their honest approach. They kind of did exactly what I was hoping for. You know, give both sides of the story and just kind of let it sit there and just kind of let you decide how it's supposed to go. So
I never saw any of their name before until I moved out here. Are they based out here? Are they based in Lower Mainland?
I think they're actually based in the United States, as far as I know, because they do have a US and a Canada version. So, but I think they only came around on my radar maybe about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. But hopefully somebody that's watching this can correct me on exactly when they came to conception.
Leave it in the comments, people. And I want to say too, you guys that are listening, feel free to throw in some questions for Joe here. And also, if this conversation is going to live on the Facebook group after we're done here, so feel free to tag anyone you know in Surrey who might want, who would appreciate learning about Joe Kennedy here, who's running for councillor for the city of Surrey in the upcoming mayoral election. So, you know, it's such an odd thing to. Me and Melissa were talking about it during dinner. It's like, you know, knowing that there's a U.S. midterms coming up, and I'm old enough to remember, you know, when I was a kid, Ronald Reagan, and then, you know, then George Bush Sr., and then Bill Clinton, and you know, Melissa's younger than me, and so I was like, when did you know, now whenever there's an American election, it's just such a you know, I can't remember the word I used. It's such a show. It's just such a thing. It's like such a popularity contest. And when did it become such a shamble, you know? And I was thinking it might have been somewhere around Clinton. You know, well, Ross Perot Clinton, or maybe that was when it really started, or something like that. And like, unfortunately, like, many of us Canadians relate our understanding of a Canadian process through what we witness that happens louder in the United States. Mm-hmm. Right? So you ask a Canadian what their thoughts are on politics, and they start talking about Trump or Bush, or, right? You know, it's like, wait. You know, like right here, you know, Surrey, you know, Richmond, yep. You know, the Maple Ridge. There's no George Bush here. There's you know, it's just, you know, let's get back to here. But then they tend to kind of take that and just not take it seriously. Nothing ever changes. Nothing ever, you know, and there's like, are we talking about Canada? Or are we talking about the States? American politics are not mentioned, but influenced in the way people talk. And now there's a lot of you know, people nowadays that just don't take it seriously, that just don't really care to give politics any sort of attention or any sort of care, that they give it the you know, the poor man's wisdom of, like, or maybe that's not the right term, but they pretend to be wise about it and say nothing ever changes, and I won't do anything, you know. Like, reach out to those people. Like, how do we reach out to those people and let them know that, like, your vote counts, and this is who I am. I'm not like the rest. I'm you. You know, how do you do that?
It's a great question, and if we are able to answer it, then we win the election, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You know, if you happen to know, put it down in the comments. But you know, you have two sides of the story. You have people that are disenfranchised and just so apathetic to all of politics. I remember an old adage back in the day, and it was that you never talked about religion, abortion, politics, and economics is the things that you would never talk about at a polite party, right? And it's become so polarized, and the left within Canada has gone so far left, and then you combine that with the cancel culture and the shaming of people that want to stand up for themselves and still consider themselves, you know, center. Center is so far right compared to how far the left has gone now, that anyone that's not agreeing with everything that they're demanding is considered far right extremists. So, but I mean, they're way past the horizon of where you can even see them now. So I don't know so you have those people that are just disenfranchised, and they're like, well, I'm not going to talk about it. Just going to focus in on my life and the things that I can change, you know, my family, my community, my business, my job, whatever I can do, and just trying to make the most of that. And then you have the other people that are, again, so disenfranchised that they just want to see this accelerate and go, well, how far can we make this go? Like, let's just burn it down, right? And that's an unfortunate thing to have, because people are going to suffer when that happens. And real people are going to suffer if systems collapse and we keep allowing this left to go unabated with any pushback. So, you know, these policies truly have consequences, and we've seen left-wing policies kind of play out, and you don't have to look too far in history to see it turn out absolutely horribly. It's funny. It's not funny, actually. When we're going to these all candidates meeting, and we're dealing with inflation, and anyone that knows anything about printing massive amounts of money knows that inflationary process is usually an elastic process. So it takes about 2 years for it to kind of catch up to the printing. And so bang on, we're now dealing with inflation that was printed 2 years ago, which is standard for how that works. But you have these 5 main parties within Surrey, and then we're the 6th party, of course, we're considered independent, even though we're not. Well, we are in the sense that we're not funded, but independent in the sense that they don't consider us a party. But you have all these 5 parties just making promise after promise after promise, and you got to think, like, all these promises are, again, coming from your taxes. And if they're not coming from your taxes, then they're coming from shortfalls within the city on the spending programs that they're promising people. And so they're either going to have to run a shortfall and then ask the province to bail them out, raise taxes, or the federal government to print the money to be able to pay for it. And so, with housing being such a big issue this year especially, you hear them promise all these things that are supposed to look out for the disenfranchised, the lower income, the people that are homeless, people with mental illness and that sort of thing, and try to make it more accessible for housing and try to bring the cost of living down. But if anyone that knows about economics knows that with all these promises, if they come to fruition, it is going to make the problem that much worse. And so you're going to have this cycle of we're going to have to get more money because there's more people that are poor, and we're going to have to get more services available because now we have more people falling through the cracks, unable to provide for themselves and be able to have a great living within such a high cost of living city. So what I'm saying is that if you take these politicians at their word, the very people that they say that they're looking out for are the very people that are going to get hurt by voting in those policies. So
yeah, I know. Like, I mean, you talked about the left's policies recently, and you don't have to look far, but I did. When you said that, I looked back a ways, right? I mean, the last 100 and so years of communism in different countries around the world. This is how far the left can go, and it's shown. But like, let's remove the results of communism and just think about it on its own. What
results? Like the murderous?
The starvation, the
race to zero, the equality to where everyone has nothing.
Yeah,
and starves to death, and
exactly.
So we'll remove all that stuff.
Let's all remove all that stuff. When you think about it, right, it sounds like a perfect thing. It's this intoxicating concept that is like, wow, why aren't we all doing that, right? Like, and so when you bring it down to like the municipal level in our current time here, and say these homeless people, these people with mental illness, they need us to look after them, and it's true, they do. So, to some degree, and it's not one answer. It's but then you throw money at it, and you got a leftist policy that's growing and ballooning and growing, and then you keep throwing money at it, and it's growing. But then someone comes along and says, we can't keep throwing money at it. Now it's like, you don't care for these people.
Exactly, you're a heartless right winger. And absolutely, you don't care about humanity. You don't care about whichever intersectionality group that happens to be the person that we're talking about at that moment. Yeah. Well, I mean, the road to ruin is paved with good intentions. Absolutely. And the only reason that the left has so much money right now to be able to spend is because Canada was mainly a conservative value place. It built up its wealth. It's built up the stability of Canadian culture by having, focusing on family, focusing on community, focusing on raising good children that didn't go towards crime. And I mean, there's no easy answer for why we've slipped away from that. There's a multitude of reasons, and and some of them I'm sure that I have in mind are right, and some of them are probably so far off. I don't know. But here we are. We find ourselves in these situations now, and we're standing on the shoulders of giants, saying, "Well, let's give them more money, and let's give them more money." But all we're saying is, yes, they do need help, of course. But can we talk about how much money? Is George, are you okay with spending $10,000 of your own to be able to go towards homeless? Yes or no? And okay, well, is that too much? Okay, great. Well, is 5,000 enough? Is 500 enough? Was 50 enough? Or is it not enough? Is 50,000 more up your alley? There has to be a conversation on it. Yeah. And unfortunately, when you have government spending so much money on different groups that are kind of overlapping each other, you end up having probably an opportunity where you're paying twice, triple, quadruple times for the same service. Meanwhile, if you kind of left that money in the hands of the people in the first place, so that they can choose on how they want to be charitable, and they can choose which goals they want to pursue, and they can choose maybe to reinvest it in their business and succeed, and be able to then take their extra income or extra profits and be able to help out those that are around immediately without going through multitude of hands that are getting filtered and taking a little bit here and there. I find that people, if they get to make their own choices, you take away the government's ability to sound virtuous by spending other people's money.
Yeah, exactly.
So it'd be nice if they left it in our pockets to decide on whether or not we want to be able to pay for the hydro or pay for that tank of gas, or if we're doing very well, that we can give back to the community. But to demand it and have them take all of our money and then say you're still terrible and we need more from you, and you need to sacrifice your job, and you need to sacrifice your future and your kids' future because you're a heartless bastard, a greedy bastard. It doesn't work on me anymore. So
yeah, it's like, I think if me and you had our way, we would take some funding and promote the importance of family in schools, and promote the importance of starting a business, and encourage people to start a business. Make it easier for someone to start their own business rather than all this red tape and everything they have to go through. Now you need at least $1 million to start a restaurant.
And who's going to pay that much money with they could just shut down like that?
Exactly. And that was the new immigrants business forever in Canada.
Yep.
The really good food in town is usually the new immigrants.
Yeah.
Because they got all the restaurants for that block of 20 years that they're all the new immigrants, right? That's the way it's been. Now it's just impossible. Like they have to work these jobs that are degrading, and they can't be their own boss. And it's just even just starting an online business now. You need to have a full-time job somewhere. You need to have everything, because the cost of everything else is so atrocious that you can't just be focused on that one thing. It's so challenging that we have a Canada that is not recognizable anymore to the Canada that I remember from when I was a kid in the 80s. Everyone I knew, everyone's dad, everyone had their own business. They all did. When I met friends whose parents worked at an office, that were weird. That was a weird thing. That was a weird thing. So and now we're all like, chasing opportunity to go work in an office or something. And there's no more tradespeople. There's no.
Isn't that true?
There's no more restaurants that are new popping up. It's heartbreaking because people can't start businesses anymore. It's just too expensive. We gotta encourage new business and allow the market to compete.
Yep, exactly. We do have to let the market compete. Now, I can't speak to why, Surrey, I think the most recent stat says that I think Surrey gets about 1,200 new people every month. I don't know if that's accurate. I don't know if it's more or less. But, I can't speak to why people decide to move here or immigrate here. Clearly, why does the chicken cross the road? Because it thinks that the other side is better than where it is. And so, I don't know if the jobs are necessarily degrading or that sort of thing. because maybe it's a better opportunity for them to be able to send money back home.
Yeah.
I can't fault them for wanting to do best for their families and be able to take whatever jobs possible. And Canadians are very fortunate, and maybe I don't even want to say spoiled either, but you know, you hear about this term quiet quitting nowadays, which is where people just don't want to go back to work, and you go, well, how the heck can they just be quietly quitting? Like, how are they getting that much money from the government that they can just quietly quit and not work anymore? I don't get it. But funny story, I had a roommate way back when I first moved out to BC area, and I was working, I think, 3 jobs at the time, and his whole thing, and it just struck me as so weird because I've never met somebody like him before, but his whole thing was he wanted to work just enough to just get by to pay his bills, and the rest of the time was spent him pursuing art or doing whatever he wanted. Bless you.
Yeah, thanks.
And I just found it to be so strange that he didn't want to have a little bit extra, but to each their own. He worked, I think, a job at a movie theater where he was an usher at a movie theater. And I think he worked 8 hours a week, and that was enough for him. And then the rest of the time he just did whatever he wanted, and more power to him, you know, all the rest. But yeah, there's people like that out there, and I learned something new that day. So, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. We were raised at a time where, you know, wars only happened in the past, or they happened far away. You know, grandpa was suffering, but not us. You know, like, it's just so when you're 14 and someone's telling you about how hard something was once.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, 20 years ago, when you're 14, is ancient history. You know, 80 years ago, when you're 14, is like never gonna happen again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's so hard. It's so not tangible when you're, you know, in your early teens or that sort of thing.
Exactly.
And so we didn't take those lessons. We had it easy.
Exactly. And what do they say? Good times create weak men, and bad times create strong men. And the other thing as well, you know, in terms of perspective as a teenager, a lot of the kids, it's popular now to say like, oh, you know, the rich old people, they got all the money and they've had their time and they should be sharing their wealth. And it's like, you know, it took a little while to work through the mathematics and go, well, they've been around for 80 years. And let's say they worked for 65 of those, or, you know, 45 of those years. They should have more money than you if they're diligent. If like a little bit of money, like you've been working for 1 year. Yeah. So, you know, so I always kind of laugh at that argument that the old people have all the money. Well, they should have freaking all the money. They've had time to invest it. You know, compound interest and all the stuff that should be taught in schools. But clearly isn't.
I remember this. I lived in Jasper for a few years, and there's a bit of a Greek community there. And I know I'm Greek and stuff, and so I got to know a few of the older Greek guys, and those are the few people I hung out with from time to time. I would go to their restaurant, and they'd be sitting in the back, and I'd just, you know, have my dinner there and just have a conversation with them.
How much ouzo did you drink?
Not much. No, I didn't.
No? Was it a Zambuca or an ouzo? I don't know.
Ouzo's the Greek version. It's a little more runny. Sambuca is a little more of like a syrup. That's why it likes better. Yeah, it's one guy, and I remember a lot of people didn't like him because he was so rich. He owned a lot of buildings in Jasper, and you know, some of them were worth like $15 million and making him $60,000 a month in rent, because there's you know, an A&W in there and 3 gift shops and a restaurant, and you know, he's doing well. He's doing really well. For him. You know, and you know what these people didn't know, because I'd be hanging out with them, and you know. And then I'd hear, oh, you were hanging out with that guy. Oh, he owns everything, you know. So, well, he bought it, you know.
Exactly,
and what they didn't stop to think is like that guy moved to Jasper in like the late '60s and spent 45 years making steaks for tourists. Yeah, he just spent 45 years doing nothing but making steaks for tourists, right? Yeah, and now, you know, like someone might start making steaks for tourists in Jasper just so they can make money to drink. But he saved his money, bought the property next door, then bought the
Yep.
property down the street, and then he had
Yep.
enough property to take a loan out to get one of those properties turned into a building, and then he's
Yep.
got more
Leverage it.
property, and then he's like, now he doesn't have to work, but he's already done. He's done working. He doesn't have to do that. His kids are never going to have to work.
Yep.
Now his kids look after properties.
Yep.
You know, it's like good, man. Like,
Yes.
like that's what it means. Oh, he's got all
Because
the
of him,
money.
yeah, because of him, we got an A&W in there and 3 gift shops to bring in tourists, and now
that's right.
you know, our neighbors got jobs to work at, and good for them. If they want to try it too, they can save their money and have at it. But
I would never spend a year making steaks nonstop, let alone 45. I would just hate my life if I was doing that. I just like.
You'd be really popular at a barbecue, though.
You're right. You know, like you just never had free time. Like in Jasper too, like you don't have weekends off because that's when the tourists show up. You know, like there's like, so that guy just never had a minute to himself for 45 years. And now he's rich and we're supposed to hate him. That's not okay. I'm not okay with that, right? That's the mentality.
I hope his kids I hope his kids are thankful after they get over the sense of him not being around on the weekends to play with them.
For all
the
they were
he
doing great and stuff. His kids were doing great. They were all a real loving family and stuff. So
good.
You know,
Excellent.
it was good to see. But yeah, like it's, you know, people earn what they have. That's the point.
Yeah.
Is like, you know, I could never do what he did, you know, but it takes something. You know, behind every mass of wealth, there is a whole generation of people that were satisfied by whatever service that wealth was created on. You know,
Exactly.
right?
He wasn't putting a gun to people's heads saying you have to pay for my steak.
Yeah.
He was offering a great product at a decent price that people were willing to come and spend their hard-earned money on to have a great time and a great memory.
Yeah, that's right. And I find it so confusing that we're in a world now where that is somehow not accepted and not the proper narrative to be part of the establishment. Like,
well, everything's broken down into, you know, privilege and intersectionality now.
Yeah.
You know, critical race theory is being taught to our kids to see everything about the world through the lens of intersectionality and racial biases and unrealized biases. And, you know, it's gotten so far that those people have graduated now. It's not like it's just being taught now. It's been being taught for quite some time. And that it's being taught that the most important thing you can look at is the intersectionality of a person, their unchanging characteristics, which, you know, back in our day, it was things that you were taught to overlook. You looked at a person and you didn't judge them by the cover, you judged them by what was inside the book, right? Who they were, person of their word, you know, honorable, mutually beneficial in that sense. You know, did they look out for you as much as you looked out for them? You know, but now it's just victim groups and oppressors. So it's the oppressed and the oppressors, which is right up the alley of Marxism, of the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, which leads into communism. And, you know, there's a guy named Yuri Bezmenov who broke down, he was a gentleman that basically worked for Russia. He was a KGB agent, and he did a lot of work in India. And then he decided to get out of KGB and India, so he escaped India, came to the States, and then immigrated up to Canada. And he's passed away now, but he has a couple of, I think he has maybe 2 or 3 things up on YouTube. And he goes through the breakdown of how to subvert a nation, straight up. It's a 6-part, you know, breakdown. But the key takeaway for it is that in order to subvert a nation, you just have to indoctrinate the next generation. It's 10 years. And because after they have been indoctrinated through the school system, then they graduate, and then they go up into, you know, specialty universities and colleges, and then they go out into the workforce and they spread that ideology all throughout their workplaces. And then it becomes common practice, and you go on with your life, and it just continues to spread, and you see the nation crumble because the foundations of it are being attacked. And the interesting thing at all the end of this, he talks about, you know, how do you prevent it? And love it or hate it, he says that the way to prevent it is through religion, because you don't take the government's word for things. You have an unchanging authority on morality that is to God, and the effect of that is that the subversion doesn't work on you, and so you can't be subverted because your alliances are to God. So it's pretty interesting. I highly recommend anyone that's interested in this sort of thing to check out Yuri Bezmenov.
I'm writing that down. You know, when
Yeah.
you said that, I was thinking during the Soviet takeover of Russia was perhaps the most persecuted, the period of the most persecuted Christians out of the last 2,000 years. There was more priests martyred in the first 50 years of the Soviet Union than perhaps in the previous 2,000 years, which is a huge statement because there was like 300 years of illegal Christianity within that 2,000 years, and then there was persecution all over the place. So it's crazy to think, like,
Yeah. And for those that don't know, the Christian, the goodwill of the Christian church in Russia was used against itself, because as the communists took over, they obviously wanted to spread the wealth, but the church was still protected. And so they used their morals against them and said, well, you guys have all this wealth, you should sell it and look at all the people suffering around you. You need to do something for them and actually, help them survive. The communists were saying this. And so the churches were, kind of beguiled into, I think that's the right word, beguiled into giving away their wealth, selling their buildings, giving away all their, holy artifacts, selling it, and then they had nothing. And then they were equal, that they also had nothing along with all the peasants that had nothing as well. So everybody was starving. And then, of course, you can't have religion if you're going to be a communist nation, because you can't have somebody subvert your authority to truth. And so that's why they were one of the first ones up against the wall. Yeah,
it's horrible. It was pretty bad. Yeah. There's a lot of rough history in that. Speaking of communist countries, I rabbit hole every few years into whatever happened to Cambodia in the 70s. Cool. That one was just shocking, man. That one was like, I might be due for another round. Yeah, Khmer Rouge. It was just absolutely atrocious what happened there, and all for the greater good, all for this utopian goal of everyone. Like Pol Pot's army, when they took over Phnom Penh, the first thing they did is they blew up the banks.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they blew up the banks. They just started. They didn't just shut them down. They put explosives in there and they exploded them. They literally did that. It's just nuts.
It's crazy for anyone that wants a quick history lesson in that. There's a fantastic movie that seems pretty accurate from what I've read as well. But it's called First They Killed My Father. And believe it or not, it's by Angelina Jolie. She did it. But that was quite the harrowing movie to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I did watch that when it first came out. I think I saw it on Apple TV. And it was pretty real. It was pretty real, man. I was feeling it, and you could follow this whole family through the progress of it.
So that's a little glimpse into what communism devolves into.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like this thing about like, they just haven't done it right yet.
Well, isn't that just crazy? Because when you set up a system as rigid as communism, where you have the means of production being controlled by the government, somebody within the government's going to control that, obviously. All it takes is a bullet. And so you think even if you set up the most egalitarian, equal society possible, where the government's deciding everybody's choices and everybody's production and controls all of it, then all it takes is for one psychopath to come along and kill whoever's in power, and then suddenly have a military coup, whatever it may be, and now they have all the power because you've structured it so that the government has all the power.
Yeah.
And so, you know, even if you find somebody that is as holy as the holy comes, you know, all it takes is a bullet, and then suddenly you're into absolute hell.
Yeah, one of the things I was hoping, I'm still hoping we see result from the last 2.5 years is a strong private medical sector in Canada. To have the monopoly on it, for the government to have the monopoly. And like I support Medicare. Like I'm the first to defend it and say, like, you know, you shouldn't have to worry about losing your job so your kid can go
Yeah.
to the doctor. Like,
Yeah.
That's the way some people are living in the States. You
Yeah.
know, you shouldn't have to live that way. You know, the fact that someone who's handicapped here in Canada uh, doesn't make their family poor.
Yeah.
You know, that is a wonderful thing. I'm very proud of that. But you know, I got a lot of cousins in Rochester, Minnesota, where the
Okay.
Mayo Clinic is, and their point of view on Canada's health system is like, you know, half the people who come in to see doctors there are Canadians who couldn't get
Yeah.
procedures.
Yep.
And you know, on a personal story for me is when in 2000, the summer of 2000, when my dad got diagnosed with a brain tumor, he got given a 3-month prognosis that you're gonna be dead within 3 months, and then he got told a surgery could help, an MRI could probably help that surgery as well, but there's a 6-month waiting list for the
Oh my
surgery,
God.
right?
Really? Yeah.
That woke me up. I was
Yeah.
25, going, no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. I was 24 that summer. Yeah, I was like, that's not how it's supposed to be. And doctors were having to tell some people that every day, right?
Jeez. Yeah.
And then since then, I've just heard the nonstop stories, and then hearing the stories from my cousins in the States and around the Mayo Clinic.
Yeah.
And then, you know, here having my own point of view on things and my own experiences with it. And it's like, I love that we have Medicare. I want to support it, and I do.
Yep.
But let's keep that money in Canada. Let's bring let's lessen the strain on that system a little bit, and allow
Yep.
a business owner, a business-minded, entrepreneurial style medical professional to
Yep.
take a chance and see if
Well, wouldn't
he or she could provide a product and a service that people are willing to pay for.
wouldn't it be a great time with all the nurses that were laid off because of COVID,
Yeah.
refusing the COVID jab, and doctors that have spoken out? I mean, that all comes down to the licensing of the College of Physicians within Canada. I don't know what the proper term for them is.
Yeah.
But, you know, the fact that they hold that over somebody's head, that they're going to prevent them from doing what they've studied to do and what they're passionate about and what they're good at doing,
Yeah.
is just absolutely criminal. All because they chose not to get the jab. It's just absolutely insane.
So there's a
So
chance, like a lot of them, they're disgruntled. They're not comfortable going back. The hospitals, like I've talked to a few people working still in hospitals, and
yeah,
you know, like me or you, we might have both had the experience because of what I do with Jobless Jobs, and obviously you're not silent about your point of view. We've both had, I'm sure we've both had those people in private come up to us and tell us how they really feel, right?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and are like, well, you know, why aren't you screaming it? You know, but you don't, we're not standing in their shoes. So, but you know, I got a friend who works at a hospital, and he's like, oh yeah, COVID changed us forever. Like the culture of the staff in the hospital now is so toxic and so intense that that you don't even dare speak up. All the people that spoke up are gone,
yeah,
right? So now it's like the status quo, the establishment of the hospital that comes from the government funding and the College of Physicians in all the different provinces, all these
yeah,
colleges are just gone so woke left, and
yeah.
like you can't even say, you know, I can't even raise a question. Can't even like
Nope.
this one guy I know, he was telling me he can't even say that he goes to church.
Yep.
Like he'll just
Even though
be,
it's protected under the Human Rights Code in
yeah.
Canada,
He can't even
you can't be
can't even say
discriminating
that
against
he
any
goes to
religion.
church because he's going to be
Yep.
attacked, and it's going to be intense. So he says
Yep.
like he works in intensive care, I think it is. I don't want to give too much away, but
Yep. No
where
problems.
when he's working, he says it breaks his heart, but it gets better for him when it gets busy. When it's busy, it means there's more people suffering, but it keeps all the staff working hard. So there's less time for that conflict, and there's less time for a potential error in a friendly conversation. Because
Yeah.
to be busier and under the gun and in the trenches is when you can just be a medical professional in this world now.
Yep.
You know, and there's a lot of people who are not going back because they don't want to. They know what that culture is. They know
Of
what they
course.
left, and they don't trust it because they'll be the first out again. And now
And why would they? I mean, the unions didn't even stand up for them. So, I mean, you
no.
pay into this union, they're supposed to stand up for all union members and all the rest, and then they just laid them out to dry. Again, you know, I don't blame them for not wanting to go back
So
after being treated so poorly.
what do they do now, right? Like, so I've been in some talks with some groups and stuff, and I might have some ideas that could come into fruition over the next year or so with through my platform and stuff. But it's a process, and we're going to be taking on a big challenge, right? But it's another way of creating jobs, and that's what we're doing. That's what we try to do is just connect the dots and that sort of thing. It's a complicated world to navigate, and I feel bad for them. But there's a chance that there could be a two-tiered system in Canada in the next 5, 10, 15 years because of all these people who saw this culture. You know?
Well, you know, I thought about it beforehand. I don't have a stance on it one way or another. I'm like you, where I'm very happy and thrilled that we don't lose our house or jobs or you know, our savings if there is an illness within the family. We're very fortunate to live in Canada for that. You know, but I also do believe in free market and competition and that sort of thing. So, you know, in my mind, I know that there is room to explore that option of private healthcare, and especially when you hear about people suffering unduly, where they could go and pay a reasonable amount of money. What's reasonable if your life's on the line? I mean, you'd probably be happy to pay whatever at that point, but not saying that it's fair, but is it fair to not allow them to be able to get treatment as well? So, you know, but I also understand that there's a lot of people that base their job on the safety of the healthcare system and the unions and the good pay and all the rest, and they'd be very upset to hear that there'd be a two-tiered system. But again, they've kind of shot themselves in the foot where they've created the need for that now, especially when they're going to demonize people that have a difference of opinion within the medical field. And I find it so strange. Anytime there's going to be a major medical procedure done, the old adage again was get a second opinion, and find out difference. If you know it's everything that they say it is, and find out as much information as you can. But now in this day and age, it's like, there's a monolith where it's one opinion and that's it, and nobody deviates from it. Otherwise, they get censored, banned, canceled, whatever it may be. And it's really accelerated that subversion. I don't know the stats on how many conservatives versus liberals have taken the jab versus not taken the jab. But from the people that I've talked to and just the anecdotal evidence that I have, the people that are all about the insanity of the left are more likely to have gotten the jab in my circle. And extrapolating that out, it's really accelerated the subversion where now you have government mandates on getting the jab. You have it within airlines, you have it within medical, and so you have, again, only one accepted ideology, and everyone else is out. So we're just in the cusp, baby. It's hopefully we can stem the tide, but you know, buckle up. We'll see how it goes.
So, what's the first thing you're gonna do when you win as a counselor? Do you have that? Have you thought of that first day?
I imagine if we win the first day, I bet you there will be a lot of staff there that will probably call in sick that day. I gotta wonder. it's going to be exciting. It's going to be nerve-wracking. It's going to be wonderful and scary all at the same time. A lot of weight and pressure comes on with being a counselor. I don't have it laid out for the first thing that I'm going to do. On the first day, it's going to be getting to know everybody that I'm working with, the main advisors, get to know them, find out what actually goes on. Take a look through the treasure trove of what's going on behind the scenes that's accessible to counselors that might not be to the public, and just play it by ear. So I wish I had a perfect thing of what I'm going to do, but to be honest, it's going to be a huge learning experience being a part of that. And so I'm not going to lie about what I'm going to do. I'm going to dive in and learn as much as I can.
Yeah. When you guys win in Surrey, People's Council is what I'm talking about. I'm going to come and visit. All right.
That would be awesome. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
You can stay at my place. Yeah.
Well, I'm in Vancouver. I could day trip it.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, I'm gonna come and see. I want to come and see Reet as mayor, and you guys all having a meeting, and see who's happy to be a part of your meeting and not happy to be a part of your meeting.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You're pretty telling, but.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be, when we actually win and the votes are counted, they've already stated that it's probably going to take a couple of days afterwards. It's the first time they've done mail-in voting as well.
Oh, yeah,
okay. So they've already kind of preemptively said it's going to take a while. So read that for whatever you want, but, when the news comes in. Yeah.
Joe, can you check your speaker or something? I'm hearing a lot of distortion in your voice now.
Okay.
So yeah,
thanks for that.
Something's changed. Something just changed.
Let me see if I'll switch this one out and go here. Let's try that now.
Way better. 100%.
Way better? Okay.
Back to normal.
Good.
Yeah. Cool.
Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. Brand new just for this, so I wanted to make sure that I had the best possible audio quality. I know it doesn't come through this to the microphone, but still, yeah, just learning the ropes. So. Yeah, but there's going to be a celebration with me and my family and friends and supporters and that sort of thing. So I'm sure a cocktail will be had and maybe a steak. So that'd be really nice. That's day one.
Is there counselor debates?
Yep, there sure are. There's been a couple already. I couldn't tell you the exact dates. It's been a bit of a whirlwind. There's a mayoral debate tomorrow. And then I'm part of a counselor debate on Thursday at Quantland College. So all that information is up on our website. Sorry, not on our website. It's on our Facebook. The website doesn't get updated as much as Facebook, just for ease of updating. So of course the website is peoplescouncilsurrey.ca, and then our website, Instagram, all that sort of thing is at People's Council Surrey. So
yeah, great. So how does someone learn about you? If they could find you on your website, and can someone reach out to you through your website or through the Facebook group, the Facebook page, and maybe ask you a question?
Yep, of course, they can definitely do it through the Facebook group. I don't think on the website, I think all that contact information is mainly Amaret's. However, they can always come to my website. It's really easy. It's joekennedy.ca. They can access me there, or they can also go to my Facebook page, which is Joe Kennedy PPC on Facebook. So, everyone's all about recycling and that sort of thing. So I wanted to recycle. There's too many, old email addresses and Facebook groups that are going into the dump. So I thought I'd reuse the Joe Kennedy PPC, keep one less out of the landfill. So, yeah.
Well, I guess when you guys are in office there, it's going to be, I'm predicting that the biggest part of your job is going to be communicating and maintaining communication with people who are so far to the left that you're the enemy, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I see a real journey of communication. So-and-so needs to be spoken to in this way. So-and-so needs to be spoken to in that way. And it's going to be a real, maze of communication.
Yep. All that we can do is just be as transparent as possible. You know, everyone's welcome. We aren't transphobic. We are not homophobic. We're not any of those things. We're just, we see every issue come down to the individual. And once you start intersectionalizing people, then if you look at anyone close enough, you realize that they are all individual. They have individual circumstances, you know, individual experiences, all the rest. So even though you and I are two white dudes, in this sense, we are two very different people. And even my brother, you know, we grew up in the same household. We are two very different people. I'm sure if you took identical twins, you would still find them to be very different people. So this intersectionality of identity groups and identity politics, on its surface, I find to be very childish and racist and ignorant in its own sense, to think that you can look at one person and assume that they represent an entire group of people just by how they present or whatever intersectionality group they are. So that's why, you know, in terms of being transparent to anybody that may be difficult to deal with. I mean, if they're a Surrey resident or if they're impacted within Surrey, then they're still our constituents. And so, you know, I have a duty to them just as much as anybody else, to hear their plights and to be able to try and navigate that as best as possible. To think that I'm going to understand everybody's idiosyncrasies, like I said before, same thing with businesses. All you can do is do your best and trying to operate on a moral structure of honesty, transparency, and freedom. So that's what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, transparency, man. You know, you got to double down on that for sure. You know, transparency to the point of vulnerability.
Yeah.
So these people can and know that, like, well, he's putting himself out there and he's
Yep.
taking the risk to be so transparent that
Yep.
you know, you know, it's a real, it's going to be pretty real. I really sincerely hope to see you guys as you know, holding office in Surrey. I can't wait. I'm going to have Reed back on here again next week, and looking to hear about how the previous few weeks went since we last talked, and you know, we're gonna spread the word about that one, hopefully, and you know, get some attention his way so he can win. You know,
Great.
Looking forward to it. So, anything, any final statements you want to make? Anything you want to close off on? Anything you didn't touch up on that really matters?
You know what? Like, a lot of people, when elections happen, they really look to government to make all the fixes and that sort of thing. And government are just people. You know, businesses are just people. Government's just people. And you know, as much as you want government to make huge changes, it's really got to come from we, the people, as a whole. And so, you know, we together are really capable of being able to make the change that we want to see in our day-to-day lives. And it starts from at home. So, you know, if people can be as passionate as they have been over the past 2 years, and really come out and vote, and then continue to make those changes and stumble uphill, fighting for what they believe in, and trying to pursue what they find meaningful, then I think this is going to work out really well for us and for Canada as a whole. You know, as I mentioned before, you know, my name is Joe Kennedy. I'm running with the People's Council of Surrey. We have 5 councillors, including myself, of course. We have Shweta Bassi, Kieran Hundal, Tejnor Chima, and Coulter Singh. And then Amrit Baring, of course, is our 6th person, and he's our mayoral candidate that's running for Surrey. So, you know, we've got sound policies on cutting red tape, on housing, on making things more affordable, making them more fair. Instead of looking at an equity of outcomes, we're looking at equity of opportunity, which is truly the important thing. We're looking at reinforcing that children that children belong to families rather than to the government. Children belong to parents rather than the government. And yeah, we're just trying to look to stem the tide and have a little bit of sanity back in government. So I truly appreciate you taking the time, you and the listeners, for taking the time to have me on, and really together we can do it. And let's see, October the 15th is the actual date. There's early voting as well. I think that's on the 5th, the 8th, the 9th, and the 12th. And of course,
It starts tomorrow. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. So great timing.
Yeah.
So yeah, get out there and vote, and bring your uncle that you don't talk to anymore, and encourage him to vote, and maybe your weird neighbors and all the rest. So get them all out.
Okay, and like you heard me say, this conversation's gonna live on the Facebook group after we're done here. I'm gonna post
Fantastic.
it there. I will tag you in it, so if someone asks some questions, they can potentially have a response from you in
Perfect.
the comments there. And I'm going to encourage people to tag people they know in Surrey, so they can spread the word. Unfortunately, because it's a private group, you can't share it. So
Okay.
it's just going to have to get some traction underneath in the conversation to keep it up in the algorithm.
Yeah, I wonder if it's possible, George, to take the video. I know it probably lives on Facebook. I don't know if it's possible to download it and then I can upload it on my. Nope.
No, I searched around. I'd love to, man. I really would.
Screen capture like the video in the theater.
Else, yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah, pirate the version. The most popular pirate.
There might be a Google. There might be an answer on Google or anything or something like that. I started looking into it. I just didn't have the time to really, I'm not saying 100% no, but I just don't think it's possible with everything I got going on and just to do it. If someone knows how to download these conversations, please put it in the comments. I'd love to know about it, because I wanted to get to Amrit as well. But the best thing to do is, tag people in the comments, ask questions in the comments, and like it, and that'll really drive it up in the algorithm. We got 130,000 people in the group. I'm sure a lot of them are in Surrey, so let's get some attention your way that way. And we know that's why this group exists, is to support people who are on our side of history. So let's get them into politics. I have no problem with having you guys on here and having these conversations. Cool. So thanks for being here, and we'll hopefully we'll be in touch with good news in the future.
That sounds great, George. I look forward to the follow-up when we win.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it too. All
Excellent.
the best.
Thanks so much, man.
Have a
really
good night.
appreciate it. Okay.
Bye.
Bye,
everyone.